Hello, and welcome to the 27th inning. I am your host, Michael Grinnell, and today marks the first double feature episode of the show, as you will be hearing from Tommy John III, the author of Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, a Sports Parent's Survival Guide, and his father, four-time All-Star pitcher Tommy John. The name Tommy John is familiar to many a baseball fan, as he was the first pitcher in Major League Baseball history to undergo ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction surgery and come back from the injury and surgery to play at a high level once more. Now his name is eponymous with the procedure, as fans every year will hear of a pitcher having to undergo Tommy John surgery. You'll hear later in the show from Tommy John as he talks about his career and the process he went through to come back from the surgery. But first, we'll hear from his son, Tommy John III, a former player who has since moved into the world of sports rehabilitation. He'll talk about his career as a player and the work he's doing in the rehab field to try and help prevent the rise in significant sports-related injuries in children. We'll be back in a moment, and when we return, you'll hear from Tommy John III. All right, we are here now with Tommy John III, the son of former Major League Baseball pitcher Tommy John, and the author of Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, a Sports Parent's Survival Guide. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Now, we're going to be going into some of the medical stuff around your work and trying to help raise awareness to prevent these kind of injuries that require these surgeries. But first, I want to talk a little bit about your playing career. You played a little bit of baseball at Furman, and then you also had some time with the Tyler Roughnecks and the Schaumburg Flyers in the independent leagues. Just talk a little bit about your playing career.
Yeah, so I was a multi-sport athlete all my life, and then I was a middle infielder and pitcher, and I'm a 5'11" right-handed, pitcher who throws 86 miles an hour, and I ended up being the Gatorade State Player of the Year in high school. So for all of you out there who think that throwing hard transcends being good, you need to realize that you still need to be a good pitcher. I was about throwing hard, and I threw as hard as I could, but you still got to be good. And so there's still people would be like, well, you can't pitch today. I guarantee you I could pitch today because I could get people out and I'd win games. And that's a commodity. And throwing hard is as well, but you still got to pitch. So I was the Gatorade State Player of the Year, throwing 86 miles an hour at 5'11", right-hander at about 150 pounds. And I went to Furman. The reason I chose Furman was because they were only one that were going to allow me of 10 schools that I was looking at to play middle infield and pitch, because I wasn't done developing, nor should anybody be done developing by high school or college. You're still growing and building, but now we have people maxing out at 12 years old instead of the progression naturally that occurs with maturation, physically, neuromotorly, and emotionally as well. So Furman, played 4 years there, got my master's in my 5th year, had a botched arthrogram. That's an injection of dye into the socket just to see what an achy shoulder was looking, and that injection got infected and sidelined me. I had to rehab from that, and I ended up being an all-conference DH at the time, leading the team in home runs, and then I pitched professionally. So it's one of those things that I had to decide what position I was going to choose right before professional baseball, where now we have people choosing at, again, 9 years old what they're going to be, and there's no way in hell anybody would know what they're going to be at that time, let alone a coach or a parent who has no clue what's going on. So I ended up choosing pitching because I was just obsessed with the chess match. Another thing with that, right before the arthrogram, before I got the infection, I was invited to the Cape Cod League. So that's the best summer league in baseball in America. And I was throwing 85, 86 miles an hour as a 5'11" right-hander. So I just want you to know that you could still be good and not throw 90 miles an hour, and still be right-handed, not throw 90 miles an hour. And everybody will give me the bullshit of, well, is your dad? Okay, my dad might have gotten a foot in a door here or there, but I still had to walk into the room and present myself.
Yeah.
So, that whole argument's laid to rest. But I just want to bring to light the things that I did that you could still do today that's not being positioned or sold to you. And so then, I played professional baseball, 2 years of indie ball. And then I went to the Dodgers signed me in spring training, which was kind of not a good thing. It was just 2 weeks down there, and then came back and I literally got released. 2 weeks after, it started to not be fun anymore. I remember waking up at my sister's, living at her house, and I was just like, I don't want to go to the park anymore. I don't want to put on my uniform and go through the work. And literally 2 weeks later, I was released. It was the first team I was ever cut from. And so there was a real reality spin there. And then 2 days later, I got the sports performance and rehab, and the rest is history.
Now, when you're just talking there, you mentioned that chess match on the mound. Can you go a little bit more in depth into what that's like?
Yeah, so I think my dad was a master of it. It's like I do in medicine. I mean, it's like I do in the rehab game. So if somebody comes in with a rolled ankle, if I had 10 rolled ankles, 10 grade 2 ankle sprains, every single person's story is completely different. How they rehab is completely different and unique to them. So when you're looking at a batter in the box, you can't just say this is a right-handed batter who likes low inside fastballs. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my dad. My fastball might be different than his, than yours, you know? So each person brings up their unique identity, and as such, their unique holes and their flaws. And if you go and exploit them, more times than not, you're going to win. You're going to be successful. Now, here's the trade-off. And this is where it becomes literally a chess match. Let's say, I mean, my dad was a master at this. So do you remember Dave Kingman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's a low fastball hitter, according to the scouting reports and all the bullshit, right? So the scouting reports, low fastball hitter. You can't throw Dave Kingman low fastballs. But my dad's a low fastball pitcher. So now what you have is you have a pitcher, and nowadays it's this. You have that scouting report. Everyone's going to throw Dave Kingman high and in or run it in or do whatever, right? But that might not be that pitcher's strength. So what you end up doing is you change the pitcher to come out of his strengths to fit and acquiesce to a hitter outside of his environment. And that doesn't make any sense. Instead, my dad, knowing Kingman was a low fastball hitter, just threw it lower than low. So Kingman couldn't lay off. And then he got these rollover balls or these little fly balls. So that's the difference between what he used to be and what it is now. And that's the part I loved, because there'd be people that were like, there's no reason you should be winning games. You throw 85, 86, you have a little cut, your changeup is unreal, but you repeatedly, consistently go at, and you just continue to find their flaws. And that's the thing. I could be more consistent in my strength. My dad could be more consistent in his strength. They're not saying that I'm anything compared to my dad, but there's the two names we're comparing, right? So
yeah.
More consistent in our strengths than the hitter would be to adjust to hit us. Like I could continue to do what I do best better than they could adjust to me. And so that's the thing. My dad learned that, and you'll learn when you talk to him, it's the early 60s or mid 60s with the White Sox. One pitching coach goes, I mean, your ball outside and low is it's so heavy and sinking so well. If you just stay out there all day long, you could stay out there more than they can make an adjustment. You're going to win more games than you're going to lose, but you're going to lose some too. Just stay out there. And then he started to figure shit out, and then he started to win games. And that's when my dad got good. So that's the chess match we're talking about.
All right. So now I wanted to ask you, how did you go from pitching, playing baseball? How'd you go from there into your career working in the rehab field?
Yeah, so I literally answered an ad. It was a 2-line ad while I was working at Pottery Barn Kids, loading furniture in the off season. I have two degrees to my name, and I'm loading furniture at Pottery Barn Kids in Old Orchard, Illinois. But what ended up happening? I saw an ad and it said sports performance trainer needed. Call this person. Ask for John. And I was like, I like sports. I like performance. I don't know what this is. Okay. So I interviewed with him, and it was a 14,000 square foot facility, and it was in training and sports performance and rehab and personal training, and kind of like you see popping up all over the place, but actually a little different. When 2 days after I got released, those guys called, and this was months after my interview. And I was just like, okay, done. It was an unpaid internship. I came in there. I had 2 degrees. I had all this experience. And I came in and was immediately on, taking clients. And we were pulling back the curtain on the orthopedic world and how much of a bull scam that is on the majority of it. And physical therapy in general, just how disastrous that whole model was. And we were doing the exact opposite of this. We had people reversing stuff that they were supposed to get surgically repaired. We were cleaning up surgeries that were faulty. We were taking in physical therapists where their models weren't working, and they were actually working with us because what they were doing wasn't rehab. It wasn't even therapy. And so I started to see some things that I trusted as being truths. And I started to be like, wait, this is not what we're taught. This isn't what we heard in pro ball or college. This isn't even, what the hell is going on? And you come to find out that this is actually the way it's been quite some time. It's just not, it doesn't make a lot of businesses money. And so if that's the case with orthopedic model and physical therapy and rehabilitation, I wonder what else is going on out there in allopathic medicine. And so it was three guys, Vladimir Chirguz, John McNulty, and myself. And for 14 years, we were diving down into the world of soft tissue injury and function and performance and sports and rehab. And what we found repeatedly were the people that were coming in with injuries, quote unquote. And when you'd rehab our way, which was really just the way since the dawn of mankind, people got better than they were prior to. And they got so much more functional and better that the people who didn't suffer injuries and were just there to train, the injured people were surpassing them. And so I started to look at what if we all just trained and prepared as if we were injured? And that's literally the eye opener, the aha moment I had, where I took all my clients, patients, everything. I was like, you are going to prepare as if you are an injured person, because injury needs more stimulus, more input, more times per day, more focus and intention, more consistency. It has to be savage. You don't get this, what rehab is. And that's what my dad turned face head on, and what he realized on his own. Nobody told him this. He figured it out. And so that's where I started to see that there was something there, that if I could rewrite the model of soft tissue injury, orthopedics, and PT and rehab, that would be it. And then I come to go down the rabbit hole of stuff and find out that a lot of things are sick in medicine and the allopathic model in general. So
soft tissue injuries, one of which would be ulnar collateral ligament tears requiring reconstruction surgery. It's the surgery that is most known with your dad, most associated with your dad. Talk a little bit about, obviously you weren't born when he went through all that, but talk about what you heard about him, what he's told you about what that process was like for him.
Yeah, so that's what's cool. I keep looking at it because people keep coming up and attacking me going, you know, you're attacking modern medicine and saying that science and technology and all this, but that allowed your dad to pitch longer. And I was like, well, it bailed him out is what it did. Mm-hmm. It bailed him out of an unaccountable life before that. And let me explain this. For 11 or 12 years, he had elbow pain prior to so the body's warning him. His body was speaking beautifully and was like, hey, you have to do something differently here. You have to prepare differently. You have to take yourself out of your environment, or I'm not going to be able to keep this up. So instead, what does modern medicine do? They gave him 50 cortisone shots. 50. That's like illegal now. It was like can't do that. So they gave him, over the course of 11, 12 years, 50 cortisone shots, because there wasn't any like get in tune with your body, rehab, do this, you know, actual training and rehab, not what America has done to it, but like real. And so then all of a sudden the body just can't keep up. He's pitching, he's 13-3 in 1974, and his ligament just exploded like a piece of glass. And then you get the bailout. And who's the bailout? It was Dr. Job. He goes, you know, he saw in my dad's eyes that my dad was not done pitching. My dad's like, what can you do? Like, can you tape it together? Literally. He's like, can you use rubber bands? Can you use, and he's like, well, there's this thing I used to do in polio patients. I could take a tendon and loop it through the bones, holes in bones to tighten their ankles. It's never been done in a pitcher, but you're not going to pitch. You're just going to hold your son or daughter or, you know, or sell cars or whatever you're going to do. And my dad's like, is there any chance I could pitch with this thing in? And he goes, I mean, it's never been done. I guess like 1 in 100. And my dad's like, okay, done. Like, that's all he wanted to hear. He just wanted one little opportunity. And that's the thing. The people that heal, the people that do great things in this life, they just need a single sliver, nugget, grain of sand of hope, of possibility. And if we have that, we can take it. We take it there. And so that's the thing. When he came into rehab, they're literally looking at him like, okay, what do you want to do today? Because there was no model, which I want to argue is the best way to approach it. Because if they would have put him like they put everybody else now into an algorithm, into a formula where it's, oh, your Tommy John surgery. Oh, here's what we're going to do. For the first 16 weeks, you're going to do this. And then for the next 4 weeks, you're going to do this. And then, oh, and why aren't you any better? Because you compared me to everybody else instead of putting me in what I need or what this person needs, what this person needs. Tommy John took 1 year and 1 day to pitch competitively after that. Why? Because that's what Tommy John needed to heal. And he worked his ass off and worked so hard coming back, trying to feel his body and connect with his body. And then when he came back and pitched, he threw 7 starts in 28 days. 7 starts in 28 days because they were trying to ruin him. They were trying to get his arm to break apart because he was going to sign a contract extension. And they didn't want to sign it to somebody who wasn't going to last. So they tried to pitch him. And what they found out was the more he threw, the better he got. And that is not what's happening today at the professional level, And so again, he kind of is the most successful, AJ Burnett's up there, but the most successful Tommy John surgery in the history of Tommy John surgeries. And there was no protocol. They followed nothing. They followed the patient. And that's what I love. And that's why I will argue to this day that that's why it's the most successful one in the history of all the surgeries.
You described it a little bit, but you go a little bit more into, your understanding of how the surgery is performed and what the recovery from it typically would entail.
Yeah. So what they do is there's a little ligament on the inside of the elbow and it connects bone to bone. That's what ligaments do. And so when it becomes torn, partially torn or exploded, they drill holes in the 2 bones and they take a tendon from your opposite arm if you have it. It's called the palmaris longus tendon, I think. Or they take it from a hamstring or a cadaver. But basically, it's a muscle. It's a tendon. And they loop it through those 2 holes and figure 8 it and then sew it together. So now the tendon has to mimic and take on the load of a ligament. And so your body has to go in and take that on. Now, here's the reality. Not only do you have to rehab from your lack of state of being prior to the injury, which is why you got injured in the first place. So you weren't an appropriately prepared adult athlete, human athlete. You weren't prepared. That's why I broke down. So you have to rehab better from a better state of function than that person. Plus, you have the actual cut in your elbow, the bone screws, a new ligament put in by a tendon. So you have to rehab from that trauma that the body takes on. Plus, you have to rehab from the PTSD that comes up from the body thinking that throwing a baseball is a damaging deal. And it will not want you to throw again. You have to rehab from the PTSD that is the surgery, from the emotional state of the rehab. You have a 3-fold deal now. And nobody does that. They're like, I just get TJ. I come back, I go through the protocol, and I'll be good. No, you're not. You're not doing it well at all if that's what you think is going to happen. And that's what we got to there's more at stake here, but the magic is really in the rehab. It's really in the stuff after the surgery. The surgery is amazing. It's beautiful, but that is not where the solution is. That is not where the success comes from, whether if you pitch more innings or you get to participate in your sport. It's from the work you do post, if you could even grasp. And I've talked to major leaguers who have consulted with me. They don't anymore because they don't like what I say. And I said that right there, that you have to rehab 3 times, whatever. And they're like, well, I mean, they've got it set up. Like, I'm going to be pretty set. I'm like, I'm promising you, it's a watered down version of anything that was taking place in the 70s or anything that needs to happen. And sure enough, the names I talked to end up having to have it again and again. And it's the 2nd and 3rd time. And it's a sad thing because surgery is not, it's something you want to avoid at all costs,
Absolutely. Now, it was interesting, something that you said there that I don't think a lot of people really think about when they think of Tommy John surgery or ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction. Like you mentioned, most people will see it as, he's just going to go through that, be out for a year, he'll come back, he's fine. But you mentioned the body PTSD, the fear of re-injury from throwing. Talk a little bit about that. That's something that I think a lot of people don't really know about or realize it is something that happens in these athletes.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool thing the body has ingrained in it naturally. It's if you or I stepped off a curb and rolled an ankle, The brain will remember what we were thinking about, who we were with, what was in our stomach, what happened the night before, what the weather was like, what that action was. It takes in all this sensory information and puts it into a part of the brain where it goes, if I ever come back and do that again, I'm going to watch out, because it doesn't want to damage itself. It doesn't like hurting itself. So stepping off of a curb is a very healthful thing to do. And that's how we express life. So all of a sudden, if you don't go through the actual events that it takes to rehab, every time you step off of a curb, you're going to have this emotional response of, oh my God. And you may not notice it right away, but it's in there. And now you have this stress response from stepping off curbs or going up steps. My God. Now imagine throwing a baseball, right? Or just the action of it. That's the hardest part to rehab an injury in general. It's the imprinting on your nervous system that is the protective standpoint. And it's beautiful because it doesn't want to hurt itself. So it's trying to protect you, but you have to assure it by preparing it, nourishing it, loving it, keeping it around good company, belief, intention, purpose, sleep, natural light exposure, movement, and all these other things. And then go into the sport from a healthy mindset, from play, from competition and mastery, this loving environment to come back instead of this like archaic, sort of impersonal, well, I'm just going to come back and robotically come back and pitch like the doctor said I would, or like my coaches say I will. So we have to try to find our authentic self in that. And in so doing, in that rehab process, it's great. Here's the reality. For every injury stimulus, and it's anything, it could be emotional, physical, chemical. Okay. Keep it simple. Anything that comes in and damages the body, in order to heal appropriately, you have to get a stimulus into the body greater than what caused the damage in the first place. Otherwise, you'll never heal. And that's how the body's designed. So if you think about how radical throwing a baseball is, I mean, it's literally one of the craziest things in sports, right? And when we think about that, so if you're not emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, mentally, and physically encapsulating, engaging in that with intention every single time you do some sort of form of rehab or preparation, greater than the hardest pitch you've ever thrown in the toughest environment you've ever been in, you will never come back, because you will always have that pattern imprinted on to protect. But we want to imprint health. We want to imprint safety. We want to imprint exploration, confidence, and power. And the brain will go, oh, I like this throwing. Okay, hell yeah, throwing's fun. This is good. I got this. But we have to do so from a preparation, and that's where the rehab component comes in, because we always think of rehab as being physical, and it's very much emotional and mental.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's something that a lot of fans of baseball don't really fully understand when they hear those words. So that was really interesting to hear you talk about that perspective. Another thing that I want us to talk about, and this is related to the book that you wrote, is in recent years, it seems there's been an uptick in sports injuries among youth, and especially with more UCL reconstruction surgeries. Talk a little bit about this uptick and what you wrote about with your book.
Yeah, so the book was published in 2018, so coming up on 3 years ago in June. And at that time, I mean, in 2018, there was the majority of Tommy John surgeries. 60% of all Tommy John surgeries were in 15 to 19-year-olds. And that was like 2011-12 numbers, only being reported in 2018. So we had pediatric ACL tears, pediatric. Baxter Holmes of ESPN wrote a story, because basketball is just as bad as baseball and abusing these kids. There was a 9-year-old getting ACL surgery, ACL torn. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was on Fox and Friends. I was on a national news program talking about concussions in female soccer surpassing hockey and football. Concussions in female soccer. This is all coming from the same place. Spine fractures, in stress spine fractures. And then the biggest one back in 2018. But there was depression and anxiety from these kids' inability to perform. So they were being put on anxiety medication, the whole psychiatric bullshit model there. I mean, and my brother died being in that model. So I could speak very freely about that whole topic. But we got 10, 11, 12-year-olds being medicated because they can't compete at the level that these parents are getting them at. So there was something going on, and it was these epidemic proportions. It's not that you get injured in sports, because that's what sports are. You get injured, you sacrifice yourself, you take risks, you heal, you come back, and you go again. This is like epidemic. And this is in an area that's not broken bones and lacerations. It's soft tissue stuff, like degenerative. And so what we wanted to provide was a solution, a survival guide for those parents. And so I put it into a manual, a 300-page book that literally I give to people because I don't want them in my practice. I don't want people to think that they have to go to this special baseball ranch in Texas or Florida, these places, or my place, to literally, no, it's in your homes. And if you want healthy kids, it has to be healthy mom and dad. And that's what they didn't like when I was promoting it way back then, still today. Mom and dad don't want to work. They want to, they just want to thrust kid into an environment to be able to do whatever they're going to do and hold themselves as not accountable to the actual expression of what that child's doing. But it was a 4-part solution. It gives all the tests that I do in my office for the most part to find neuromotor and physical competencies that you can find early on. There's 3 training programs to take you from super, super beginner to pro elite. Nobody's made it through intermediate. Like they're so hard and differentiated that they will literally take you through forever. 9 recipes, healing recipes, bone broth recipes, kombucha recipes, a farm to order food from where good quality meat is, like ways to thwart tech abuse, the 3-part cause as to what we're seeing with the Tommy John surgeries, why we're seeing so many, where is it coming from, and what's the solution, recovery methods, all these different things. It's literally my life story that's literally here. Here's a manual that will never go out of style. It's for the entire family. I literally might have people picking it up now who don't even have kids. The book cover says a sports parent survival guide, but just cross out sports parent. It's a survival guide for life. And so that's what the biggest thing was, is I wasn't trying to promote something that I had created, that I had invented. I was just bringing back the chapters of the books that everybody prior to was skipping in generations prior. They were just skipping over these chapters of function and health. I just brought them back in and put them into a manual here. This stuff's never going to go out of style, and it will never fail you. Why? Because it's based on natural principles and natural laws. And 2, I didn't invent it. If I invented it, it would have failed.
So for any parents out there that might be listening to this right now who have kids in sports, is there like one bit of advice that you could give to them right now to help make sure that their kids stay as healthy as possible while they're playing sports?
Yes. So from womb, actually pre-womb to like 12 is the biggest window to your child's entire life. Everything they're going to go through from pre-womb to 12. Now, everybody goes pre-womb or womb to 7. I'll extend it out because I've talked to those smarter than me who are seeing stuff and where it's headed to 12. That is the foundation for everything that they are going to do in this life. So that age of years, you really want to let them be children. They are so magnificently wired and innately intelligent. They're movers. They're challenge takers. They're risk takers. They're in exploration. They're not confined by beliefs that were limited on you, put on you, or by some organization. It's literally this beautiful time to express and not try to cram a square peg in a round hole. So before 12 years old, let them be children. What does that mean? What does that mean? No organized sports. Now listen to me, because everybody freaks out on this. Wait a second. Like, we're going to be left behind. Hold on. They're going to play sports, but they're going to be these kids playing sports in the purest forms where they'll just pick up games and go. And they'll play for hours. And there are organized sports out there, because the youth sports business model is $17 billion a year. That's bigger than the NFL. So they're going to have you feeling very guilty that you're a bad parent because you're not conforming into this whole model that's destroying these kids from the inside out for the sake of $1. But what'll happen is they will be left behind for a period of time. But while all those other kids start to fall apart, fall away, and become disinterested because they were pushed way too hard, your child's love of themselves and love of the game will transcend, and you will have, one, the best athlete you have. Two, you'll have the best athlete in that sport who loves that sport and who loves participating. And now you have a child who turns into a healthy adult instead of a broken child who turns into a broken adult. And then that's the biggest part, is trying to stay away from the guilt and shame that will come, because your parents already have so much guilt and shame that they're not doing things right and everything else. And that's fine. That keeps you on edge. But the keeping up with the Joneses is the most dangerous part. It's comparing your household to other households. So what does your family believe in? What do they value? What do you stand for? Because now more than ever, it's going to be checked. And if you take a stance against the majority, as we're seeing now, if you take a stance against the majority, they're going to come at you, claws facing you. And you have to stand firm. And youth sports is no different than what's going on in the climate of the globe right now. So that's what I say. They have to be children, man. And I literally have somebody who reached out to me in NorCal, the 10-year-old tennis player, and they wanted to do some Zoom session. And my Zoom sessions are expensive. And I'm like, look, I'll totally get on Zoom, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Go to a playground. That'll be $600. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not, well, they're competitive. No, I get it. But you asked for me. I didn't go get you out of your house, you know? So all I'm telling you is they need to be in playgrounds. They don't need to be in some specialized camp clinic at 10 years old. Now, you will have 10-year-olds that will be better at them because they're a part of those camps, clinics, and whatever. And that's fine. But that's not sustainable. Those 10-year-olds will not be successful 15 and 16-year-olds. They will not be healthy, happy, successful 17, 18-year-olds. And your child will, I promise you. There's patience and confidence and faith in the intelligence that created us. And that's what we have to get back to.
Well, that sounds like a really great perspective to have. Tommy John III, thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
I appreciate it, man. It was my pleasure.
And now, here's four-time All-Star and former Yankees, White Sox, and Dodgers pitcher, Tommy John. All right, we are here with a 26-year veteran of Major League Baseball, former pitcher, Tommy John. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's, at 78 years of age, it's good to be asked to do anything.
So, for the first question I have for you to start this off is just talk a little bit about how you got into baseball and what made you choose that you wanted to become a pitcher.
Well, I ticked my mother off, and she beat me out of the house, and I had to do something, so I started baseball. But I don't know. I always threw a ball when I was a little kid. I didn't play ball. The first time I played any organized ball, I was 8 years of age, 8 and 9, and it was not well organized. It was managed or coached by other kids that were in the next level or two higher. You know, maybe a kid 14, 15 years old was our manager, and we'd just go out and play. I'd play shortstop, I'd play left field, I'd play first base, and then I'd pitch an inning or so. That's how I got started in it. Then my dad took over as our manager, and things got, pretty much, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, I'd pitch Little League ball once a week. And I think the big thing now that hurts kids is instead of going out and just playing the game and having fun, they think they're going to go into the big leagues at 13. You know what I mean? As they go out and get instructors, and they go to get this, and they go to get that. And I told one kid, I said, look, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I'd love to get in and be a sports agent. I said, then go to school, go to law school, get your degree, and then become a sports agent, because your chances of playing baseball beyond high school are slim to none. And I just got a thing from him where he graduated from law school. And but, parents think their little cubs are going to be the best bears when they grow up in the forest, and they won't be. They're just, and they pay all this money for travel teams and workouts and and all this. Come on, go out, play the game, have fun, be a kid, enjoy it, and then when you get to be 15, 16, 17, 18, then you can, if you're still good, then you can go to that next level.
Well, it seems like getting out there and just playing for fun really seemed to work for you, as you had a nice long career in Major League Baseball. Start off by talking 1961, you're in the minor leagues with Cleveland. Talk a little bit about what it was like for you playing in the minor leagues, working your way up.
Well, I graduated high school on June 6th, and about 2 weeks later, June 20th or thereabouts, I signed and I went to that, Cleveland sent me to that beautiful resort city on the Mississippi River, Dubuque, Iowa. And the only reason they sent me there is their manager was a fatherly type guy. His name was Merrill Pinky May. And he took care of me like a father. And I stayed with a Jewish family. I think they charged me $2 a day for my room. And, and I just pitched. And I think I was 10-4 my first year, I think, if I recall. And then you just, I think the big thing is, I saw a thing on Facebook where Mattingly said the Moneyball syndrome has ruined baseball, and I think that's right. I think that you go out, you pitch, you get hit. I never had a pitching coach in the minor leagues, none. Really? I got to no, we didn't have a pitching coach. You had an organizational guy that would come by once a season and watch you throw it. Throwing the ball good, TJ. Okay, that's it. And I'd never see him again. You didn't have anybody. And, how did we improve? By learning how to pitch.
So now, 20 years old, you make your Major League debut September 6th, 1963 in Washington against the Senators. Talk a little bit about that first game for you. How did it feel to step on the mound of your first Major League game?
Well, I was pitching out of the bullpen, and when they called me in the game, you got to remember I'm from Terre Haute, Indiana, and we don't have a lot of fancy stuff there. I could not get the bullpen gate open. I'd never seen a lot like that. And I went, oh, my God, I'm going to have to climb a 12-foot fence. I shook the fence, and I shook the thing, and all of a sudden it popped open. And I went, God, thank you. I owe you. I run out to the mound, and manager said, okay, you got runners on so-and-so, lefty hitter up, let's go get him. Okay, and I just went out and I pitched. And I came out of the bullpen, I think one or two more times, and then I started my first game was against the Los Angeles Angels then. And there was a guy on the mound named Dean Chance. and I pitched against him. And, I pitched okay and lost. I pitched the next start was against the Angels again, and I lost. And so I'm 0-2 starting out, and am I ever going to win? And then 64, I make the big league ball club, and I'm not going to pitch. I mean, I'm like the sixth starter on the staff, and we're playing a doubleheader in Baltimore. And they told me the day before or 2 days before that I was going to get to start the second game. Okay. So I go, and who am I pitching against? And it turned out to be a guy named Robin Roberts. And if you go back and look at the history of the Philadelphia Phillies, their Double-A farm, or their Class A farm club, or Class B, it was B-ball then, was the Terre Haute Phillies. And, so you got the Philly Farm Club, and I was a Philly fan, and Robin Roberts was my favorite baseball player, pitcher, I should say. And I've got to face him in my first start. And I go out, and I just, here's the ball, hit it. Here's the ball, hit it. Here's the ball, hit it. We pitched 9 innings in an hour and 32 minutes. 92 minutes to go 9 innings. And I beat him, I think, like 3-0, 4-0. I just, oh my gosh, I as soon as we got back to the hotel, I called my mom and dad, tell them that I had pitched and won. Dad says, well, I was listening to the Cubs broadcast, and they said that you were in there, blah, blah, blah. And that was my start in baseball. And it was downhill from then on.
Now, something that when I spoke with your son, I talked with him about his playing career, and he mentioned when he was on the mound, it was like playing a chess match when you're attacking the batter. I was wondering if you could describe what it was like for you on the mound, your process of how you faced down batters when you were stepped on the mound.
Well, he said it was a chess match. Mine was more like checkers. But I don't know. I think back then they didn't make a big thing out of pitch counts and all this. You just pitched and you got batters out, and if you didn't get batters out, then we had a pitching coach that said, just think about what you did, what you didn't do, and what you would do differently if you had to do it over again. And that was the essence of baseball back then, is they let you coach yourself, basically. Then I got traded to the White Sox, and I learned how to pitch with the White Sox. We had a pitching coach there. His name was Ray Barris, and Ray was a catcher, and he was just get the ball out of your glove early, get your hand up as quickly as possible, and throw. And that was his thing. Boom. And, when you think about it, you say, well, yeah, that's what you do. Well, now you got the guys coming in, and they got you get your elbows up and your arms pointed down and get your shoulders, all this stuff. You throw a ball. And you just throw a ball, and if you throw one high, okay, I got it high. Then your next pitch, you try and throw it lower. And it's you see what you do wrong, and then you try not to do that same thing over again. And no, but with the White Sox, I learned how to pitch. And and I was with them until Chuck Tanner and his guys took over, and they traded me to the Dodgers for a guy named Dick Allen. And the only reason the Dodgers traded Dick Allen is one night Peter O'Malley came out of the office and batting practice was going on, and Dick was up in the on the seats out by the offices having a martini. And Peter said, "You got to be down there, you should be hitting." And he said, "Those guys need it, I don't." And so they made the move to trade Dick Allen, and the team that offered him the best trade was Steve Hunt's for Dick Allen, and I was a throw-in. But it was Steve Hunt's and me for Dick Allen. And in fact, when we won the pennant in '77, it was Roland Heeman. And Roland said, I just want to congratulate Peter O'Malley and Al Campanis and Tommy Lasorda. He said, but I think all you people here, you should probably buy me a drink because I did more to win the championship for you than anybody. And they looked at him and said, who the heck is this guy? He says, oh, by the way, my name's Roland Heeman. I'm the general manager of the Chicago White Sox. I traded Tommy John for Dick Allen. And people stood up, gave him a standing ovation. But no, then, it's like my dad told me, Tom, you've gone from the White Sox to the Dodgers. That's like going from a daily fee golf course to a private super country club. You're in the big leagues now. And it was. God, we had guys. Well, the Walt Alston was the manager of 72, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Walter did not like. I don't say he didn't like me. I don't think he liked the way I pitched. And why, I don't know, but it's just the way he was. And I would pitch games, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm out in the sixth inning, one out in the sixth. And I haven't pitched bad all game. And then you got Don Sutton's pitching, and he's got guys on base and bases loaded and all this, and he goes into the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning. And it's just the way the manager liked the way he pitched. He didn't like the way I pitched. Then he had this little fat Italian took over in '77 by the name of Tommy Lasorda. And God, I said I would go through hell in a gasoline suit for him. That's just what kind of a guy he was. I got I'm sitting on the bench, and this would never have happened with Alston. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting on the bench, and the clubhouse guy comes down, and he said, "Hey, you got to go up to Lasorda's office." And I look down to my right, and Lasorda's down there managing, and clapping. Come on, let's go. So I go up, and I try the door, and it's locked. And I knock on the door, and the door opens, and here, standing with a Dodger blue-sleeved undershirt and his tidy whities is Don Rickles. And he said, "Come in and lock the door." And I said, "Rickles, I'm not that kind of a guy." He said, "Lock the door, you effing putz, and get in here." Okay. So he said, "I got to be ball boy." and you're the only guy on the team I could trust to dress me. And I checked him out, and I said, yeah, the thing that guys will see, you miss a belt loop. So I checked. He had a belt loop, and his pants were gone. And back then is when you bloused your pants. You pulled them up, and you bloused them down. And I said, you look good to me. And he patted me on the butt, and he said, thanks, buddy, I owe you. Okay, fine. So he's a ball boy. And we end up winning the championship. And I pitched game number 1 against the Phillies, Steve Carlton. And we lose in 10 or 11 innings. And the next night, Lasorda comes in. We played like crap last night. He said, I've got a sports psychologist for you. We're gonna work this out. And everybody goes, oh no. And the door opens, and in walks Rickles. And a sports psychologist he wasn't, but I tell you what, he was cracking jokes, and in the Dodger locker room, it was laid out alphabetically, A, B, C, and A was Rick Auerbach, B was Dusty Baker, and whoever else was a B. And things that he said, my God, in this day and age, it would have been, oh, you said that? Oh, my God. Oh. I mean, nobody had, it was terrible. I mean, it was stuff that he couldn't have said in Vegas. So it comes down to Bert Hooton. Charlie Huff. And I go, oh, man, he's going to lay into me. I know he is. It goes, Tommy effing John gets paid. And he goes on to the next. And said, what happened? I said, oh, it's a long time ago. Don't worry about it. But that was Lasorda. You know, he was that managing? No, it wasn't managing. It was just loosening up the ball players so that we went out and played ball and had fun. And that's the way Tommy managed.
Well, that sounds like a good way to get you guys loose and, refocused.
Well, you know, we knew what we had to do, but sometimes when you know what you have to do, you try to do it and you try too hard. And it doesn't end the way it should. So Lasorda just had his way of, loosening us up and letting our abilities take over.
All right, so flash forward now, July 17th, 1974, pitching against Montreal. Something goes wrong, and that's the last game that you would pitch for a year after you'd have to go through the surgery to fix your elbow. Talk a little bit about what led up to that moment and, how you felt when you first noticed that something was wrong.
Well, how did I feel? I was in pain. I threw one pitch. It was in the third or fourth inning, I think, and I threw one pitch trying to get a ground ball. And, oh, man, the pain was excruciating. And I went, oh, man, what happened? Oh, gee. So I shake my elbow or my arm and flex my elbow. I wind up and I throw, boom, one more pitch. Same pain. And I walk off the mound and Alston's coming out and I said, Walter, I've hurt my elbow, get somebody in. And I went over to our trainer, Bill Bueller, and I said, Billy, get Dr. Job. And he said, I've already signaled him. So when I got into the locker room and I changed shirts to put on a dry undershirt, and back then it was, the Dodgers were press friendly. I mean, they were all over the place. And you had guys, the TV crews, taking pictures of me and talking to me, asking me questions. And then Dr. Job said, go get a shower and come out to my office tomorrow and we'll talk it over. Okay. And so I got dressed and left the ballpark. And the next day I saw Dr. Job at his office at 2:00. And he said, I think you've torn the ligament in your elbow. Now, they didn't have MRIs. So they can't take a picture and see the ligament torn in your elbow. All they had were x-rays that just saw bone. But what he would do is he would hold my upper arm steady and then take my lower arm and open it up. And it opened big time. Wow. And he said, you're loose jointed, but it shouldn't be this loose. And then he sent me to a hand surgeon. And a guy's name was Herb Stark. And he checked me out. And he was from Tennessee. And he said, boy, you sure done it. Yep. He said, if you can throw a ball from the pitcher's rubber to home plate within 2 years, you be lucky. And I said, okay, thank you. And I go back to see Job. And he said, let's give it a try, rest it. And then, so I rested for 6-7 weeks. And then I started throwing, playing light catch. And started off playing. It was just, you just throw a little bit, and okay. And I couldn't do it. It was hurting. And then Dr. Job said, we've got to talk this out. I said, okay, let's go. We can. And my thing was, okay, the longer I wait on this side of the surgery, the longer it's going to be on the other side of the surgery. And I didn't know. Nobody had said anything about how long it would be, or it was, okay, you have surgery. I thought 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and I'd be back throwing 200-mile-an-hour fastballs. And we had the surgery on the 25th of September, 1974. 2 days later, my daughter was born. Our first child was born. And I called Dr. Job out of surgery, and he came up, and I told him what was happening. And he said, well, I'll let you go home if you promise to come back and see me after she's born. Okay. Or after the baby's born, because we didn't know what it was going to be. And, okay, so I go out and tell him, I said, we had a baby girl, and we sat down and he recast my arm. Nowadays guys go in the morning, they have the surgery in the morning, and they leave by 2:00 in the afternoon with a splint or whatever on, and they go because, they know what to expect. But back then, you had no idea what was going to happen. So they had me in a cast, and I was there for, 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And then I started to throw. And when I started to throw, I started to play catch with my wife, just throwing to her. And then I moved up to my neighbor who played softball, and there was no, okay, you take you throw from 30 feet, you throw from 50 feet, you throw from 75 or whatever. No, you just throw. And I would throw 60 feet, 6 inches. That's where I pitched from. And we didn't have anybody working with me, doing all this. No, it was Tommy John. And I just threw. And I threw against a brick wall down in, wasn't brick, it was a concrete block wall down in Vero Beach in spring training. And I'd have 5 or 6 baseballs, lay them on the ground, throw it against the wall, pick it up, throw it against the wall, pick it up. That was what I did every day. And I took Sundays off. And I figured God rested on Sunday. And if he could rest on Sunday, Tommy John might as well also. So I rested on Sunday and came back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And if you tell people that now, they go, oh, my God, you didn't do the long throwing? And I said, no, you only have to throw 60 feet, 6 inches. And, you got to – and all this stuff that's going on now is because of what Dr. Job did and his people did back in 1974, 75, and all. And it just, it's evolved to the thing that kids are having the surgery way too young. And I'm not a big proponent of, there's got to be a reason why. Why do these kids have to have surgery at 15, 14, 15, 16? It shouldn't be unless you've been abused. And by abused, I mean you've overthrown. And that's what I said, if parents think that their kids are going to be the next Nolan Ryan or the next Clayton Kershaw or whatever, the kid will probably go to college and play in college maybe. It's just you have all these things that these players are going to be, but they won't be. They won't be that good. They won't do all this. So I just think that we've created a group of pitchers that pitch too early, too much, too early, too long, and they end up having Tommy John surgery. Thank God Dr. Job and I came up with the surgery, or these kids would be out there having to get a job.
Yeah. Now, you talked about your recovery and how you worked your way back from the injury and the surgery.
Uh-huh.
Tell us now how it felt when you stepped back on the mound April 16th, 1976 against Atlanta, your first game back after going through all that. How did it feel to be back on the mound?
Well, I had pitched, I had thrown the year before, and Al Campanis, I pitched in the Arizona Fall League for the Dodger team there. And in 28 days, I started 7 games. And if you do the math, that's 1 game every 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got done, Campana said, we've got a spot for you down at Dominican Republic. And I said, Al, the next time you'll see me is in spring training. I'm done. And I put the ball and glove up, and I didn't pick anything up until the next spring, until 76. And then I started that game against Atlanta. And the hardest thing for me to do was to learn how to pitch again. I could throw a ball, but throwing a ball is not pitching. It's not throwing it low and away, throwing it just off the corner, throwing it a little harder on the edge, throwing it a little slower off the corner. That's pitching. And it took me half the season to get all that back. And then once I got that back to where I could pitch with less than my best stuff, then it was fun. It was the first half that I pitched. If I didn't have my good stuff, I got clocked. And so it was a long road, but gosh, was it fun though, to get back out there, whether you won or you lost, just to get back out there and compete. That was the fun part, is competing. And I would have done anything to get back out there, and it just I did, and Dr. Job did his job. And that's what I told him. I said, Dr. Job, if you do your job, I will more than do my job as a patient coming back from surgery, because I knew how hard I would work to get myself ready to pitch. And, then it was every year, it was get yourself ready. And 76 was my first year back. And thank God it was my last year with Walt Alston. And then 77, 78 was Lasorda. And like I said, I'd go through hell in a gasoline suit for him. That's what kind of a manager he was.
You went on to have a very successful second half to your career after that surgery.
Right.
A lot of good performances out there, a couple of all-star game appearances. Just looking back on your overall career, what are some of the big moments outside of the surgery, obviously, but what are some of like the memories that you still hold dear, the fond memories that you still have of your from throughout your career?
Well, pitching in the playoffs for the Dodgers, 77, 78, pitching in the World Series. With the Yankees, my son Travis fell out of a third-story window, and Steinbrenner asked, he said, do you think Travis can throw out the first pitch at a playoff game against the Brewers? And I said, yeah, I'm sure he would. So he threw that out, and there was 65,000 people started chanting, Travis, Travis, Travis. Now, I'm pitching that night, and I can't go out there with him. So I asked Reggie Jackson if he would go out, and he says, oh, I'd love to. Yeah. So I'm there crying like a baby, and I asked the home plate umpire, I said, I need to ask you a favor. He said, what's that? And I said, I can't see very well because I'm crying. And he said, Tommy, I can't see very well either because I've been crying. And I said, well, just give me about 8-10 inches off the plate on the outside corner until I get myself into it. And he said, okay, I will. And, and then it was 20 game seasons. And then, the last year I played was 89, and that's when Dallas Green was the manager. And Dallas Green did not think I should be pitching at 46. He thought that a guy 46 should be out mowing his yard instead of pitching. And he managed me that way. And I told somebody, I said, the way I pitched good enough that if I would have had Piniella managing me, I would have been like 8-3, 7-3, 7-4. And I said, but Dallas managed me that I think yesterday or the day before was the last day I pitched in the big leagues. And the hardest thing to do was they called me in and told me that they were asking waivers on me. And I said, okay. And, I messed around the clubhouse, and I was going to empty my locker out. And I said, no, I can't do it, because if I do it, I'll start crying. And I went home, and I told my family that I wasn't going. And, I didn't have an agent. Had I had an agent that would gone out and comb the other teams, I might have got to play for another year or two. But I just said, I've had a good run. And watching my kids play ball, watching my daughter dance and stuff means more to me now than going out and pitching. And that was the end of it. And as I look back, I went, man, I had a very good career. Would I do things differently? I probably would have. But, it is what it is. It was what it was.
Yeah. Looking back at your career, you had so many numbers, so many stats, so many records that are still among the top pitching records today.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have debated whether you should be in the Hall of Fame or not. How do you feel about that? Do you believe that you should be in the Hall of Fame for your career?
My dad told me something when I was a little boy. He said, don't worry about things you have no control over. I don't have any control over it, so I don't worry about it. I said, now, if getting into the Hall of Fame would mean that I'm a 2-handicap golfer, I said I would go politic the shit out of them, try to get in. But, I think if you look back, the thing that hurts me is the elbow surgery, because people look at that, he had the surgery, and that they don't realize the numbers I put up. 700 starts, 288 wins. And this is the one I didn't know. 188 no decisions. The most in baseball history. And,
wow.
Well, if you look at that, 188 no decisions, you couldn't find 12 wins in there someplace. And, that's, so I'm in the 300 club. But after my surgery, I won 164 games. Sandy Koufax won 166 in his career. So after my surgery, I won 2 less games than Koufax did in his career. When he took the mound, he wanted to win. When I took the mound, I wanted to win. I pitched my way, he pitched his way. Sandy had more strikeouts, fewer hits, and all that. Does that mean he was a better pitcher? He had better stuff, but a win is a win. I said his wins didn't, they were the same as my wins. And should I be in the Hall of Fame? Personally, yes, I think I should. Will I? I don't know. But you know what? If I get in, I get in. If I don't, I don't. And if I get in, I want my son Tommy to be the guy that introduces me, that does the stuff, because he played ball, played college ball. He's had surgeries and all, and he understands what I had to go through.
All right. One last question for you. Now, obviously, the surgery is something that many people are going to remember you for.
Yep.
But what's one thing that you want to be remembered for in your life, playing career, on, off the field? What's something that you want to be remembered for besides that surgery?
What do I want to be remembered at? Well, did I have great stuff? I didn't have great stuff. I had good stuff. but I did the most with what I had, and I enjoyed pitching, and if I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing over again.
All right. Well, that was all the questions I had for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And that will do it for this episode of the 27th Inning. Thanks again to Tommy John and Tommy John III for being on the show. Make sure to subscribe for future episodes, and you can find the show now on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. If you have suggestions for future guests you'd like to hear from, or questions that you'd like them to answer, drop a comment on our new Facebook page at the 27th Inning, and also make sure to like it to get updates on the show and upcoming guests. Check back for next week's episode, where you'll hear from longtime collegiate baseball coach, a scout for the Miami Marlins, and the founder of the Keeper of the Game Foundation, James Valade. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.